The story begins by explaining that the abyss is formed when the concentration of mana in the atmosphere reaches a critical mass. This abyss creates a link between the human world and the demon world, known as Void. The stronger the connection, the more powerful beasts will emerge. The protagonist recalls that on the night of the tragedy, the abyssal depth in his hometown reached 12, which was enough to summon a beast called the Lord. As beasts roam his hometown, the protagonist's grandfather expresses his disbelief at having to take his axe into battle once more. He urges the protagonist named Noel to leave and head for the shelter, assuring him that it will be the safest place. Noel wonders what his grandfather plans to do. His grandfather reveals that he intends to hold off the beasts until help from the Empire arrives. Noel knows well that there's no telling when that help will come and realizes his grandfather is prepared to fight the monsters alone. He protests, insisting it's impossible and that his grandfather will only end up dead. But his grandfather chides him not to underestimate him, reminding him that he is known as the man who stands against death. He vows to protect Noel with his life and departs to confront the rampaging beasts, swiftly slicing through them. Meanwhile, Noel anxiously waits at the shelter. By morning, the sounds of fighting have ceased, and Noel ventures out to investigate, only to discover numerous monster corpses. Among them lies his grandfather, injured. Noel rushes to his side and realizes that his grandfather is still alive. His grandfather laments the toll of age, expressing disbelief that he might die like this. He reflects on the life of a seeker, explaining that choosing a life of combat means living with the constant presence of death. He then asks Noel if he still wishes to become a seeker, despite this knowledge. With tears in his eyes, Noel affirms his desire, and his grandfather urges him to become the strongest seeker possible. Soon after, his grandfather passes away, leaving Noel to grieve deeply. Noel recalls that his grandfather, Brandon Stolen, was the strongest seeker who once defeated a demon with an abyssal depth of 13, known as Cassides the Silverfish, earning him the title the man who stands against death. 2 years later, we find Noel in a monster lair with his party. He instructs his companions Lloyd and Walter to attack the monsters while asking Tanya to provide support. Tanya uses light magic to blind the monsters, allowing the others to defeat them easily. Noel explains that he holds the role of Talker, a support class considered the weakest. Next, they engage lesser vampires, with Noel noting that they are a lower class of vampire that cannot use magic. Instead, their queen is capable of rapidly reproducing, creating an endless number of spawns. Walter wonders if the spawns are all offspring of the queen, to which Noel confirms, but warns them to remain vigilant since each spawn possesses enough strength to tear apart an ox with their bare hands. One of the spawns lunges at Noel, but Tanya intervenes, reminding everyone that these monsters cannot be killed unless their heads are severed. They press forward, and Walter suggests they target the queen, the source of the spawns, to make the job more efficient. Noel points out that they can't do that since this mission is too challenging for a C-rank party like theirs. He insists they must eliminate the spawns first to increase their chances of success, and advises Walter not to prioritize efficiency above all else, or it could lead to disaster. Walter reluctantly agrees and sarcastically remarks that they will take orders from their party's useless buffer, joking that they are only able to tackle this B-rank mission because of Noel, the Great Talker. Noel is annoyed to hear this. He clarifies that the Talker class specializes in support and can boost the party's combat capabilities with buffing words, but is inherently the weakest in combat and relies heavily on his teammates. As he tries to explain further, he suddenly senses a monster preparing to attack and warns everyone to dodge. The monster releases a poisonous gas and everyone covers their noses. Noel finds himself enveloped in the gas, prompting Lloyd to suggest rescuing him. However, they are then attacked by the Queen of the Nest. Walter and Lloyd fight fiercely against the Queen, but their efforts prove ineffective, and they realize they have no chance of victory without Noel's buffs. Walter urges Noel to regain focus and give them orders. Noel retrieves his gun, firing at the monster and asserting that they should not underestimate him. He declares that he will demonstrate how a talker fights, activating a skill called Tactician to boost all party stats by 25. He instructs them to fall back as the monster prepares a ranged attack, and they comply. He then enhances the stamina and mana recovery speeds of his party members, and requests Tanya to cast a barrier around them while ordering the other two to keep attacking. With his buffs, they manage to slice the monsters significantly. Noel notices some spawns lurking nearby, ready to attack, causing Tanya to panic. He uses one of his buffs to stabilize her mental state and bolster her willpower, setting a timer for 74 seconds. He declares he will handle the spawns while they focus on the main body. He activates his Howl skill to stun the spawns and freezes them using his anti-BS gun, Silver Flame. One spawn manages to escape, prompting him to calculate the queen's movements and the time it would take to reach him. He decides to shoot the queen to distract it, allowing his comrades to strike. In the chaos, a spawn attacks Noel, but he narrowly dodges. Noel explains that the spawns freeze when the main body is killed. His party successfully finishes the job within the allotted time. They commend Noel but also chastise him for being reckless, knowing the spawn would stop moving once the queen was defeated. This reminds Noel of a moment from his past when he lamented being given the weakest job and expressed his desire to be a warrior like his grandfather. His grandfather had reassured him, pointing out how he resembled his late mother and expressing confidence in Noel's potential as a seeker. He had promised to raise Noel as the strongest seeker possible and urged him to trust him. As Noel and his party exit the monster lair, he resolves to become the strongest seeker and surpass even his grandfather. The scene shifts to Atre, the capital city of the Velanon Empire, highlighting that the nation's prosperity is rooted in its magical civilization. This empire is more vulnerable to the abyss than most other countries and has developed magical technology using materials derived from the beasts. It could be said that this technology is the foundation of the nation, and as a result, the seekers responsible for protecting it from the abyss are highly regarded by the people. We then see Noel and his friends celebrating their recent victory. Noel shares that he became a seeker as soon as he turned 15, deciding to search for companions in the capital since he couldn't fight alone, which led him to this point. Walter comments on their last job, noting that they earned a total of $5 million, while Lloyd reflects on how far they have come in the years since they formed their party. Lloyd believes they can aim even higher, revealing that he is the leader of the group. Noel considers their party strong, but thinks it would be even better with a scout. For now, he decides to focus on gaining experience with this group. Walter notices Noel lost in thought and tells him to enjoy the party, offering to listen if he has concerns. Noel brushes him off, and Walter speculates whether Noel is still upset about their refusal to negotiate for an additional $500,000 in their reward. He advises Noel that it's unwise to dwell on money as a seeker, reminding him that his grandfather would have said the same if he were there. This recollection prompts Noel to remember his grandfather's advice. Seekers should be concerned about money to ensure they have the best equipment for explorations. His grandfather had emphasized that one cannot achieve a higher status without financial resources, encouraging Noel not to be swayed by others' opinions, as being labeled as evil could be considered a badge of honor for a seeker. His grandfather had been called many names over the years, such as the man who stands against death and the undying demon, and he urged Noel to never allow anyone to belittle him. Noel reassures Walter that he isn't angry, as the issue has already been resolved. Tanya then points out that Walter keeps bringing up the topic, calling him pathetic. A drunken Walter retorts that Noel shouldn't be stingy about money, as it could reflect poorly on their party's reputation. Noel sarcastically accepts the blame for everything, prompting Walter to demand that he speak respectfully since he is 2 years older. Noel counters that age is irrelevant for Seekers. It's ability that counts. He urges Walter to stop using his age as a shield, which frustrates Walter, leading to a heated argument between them. Just as it seems they might come to blows, Lloyd intervenes, and Tanya calls them both idiots. Lloyd then casually reminds her that they are all teammates and that they share the reward. They learn that each member received only $250,000 after splitting, with Lloyd explaining that the remainder was spent on party operational costs, equipment repairs, and payments to the clan. Tanya expresses her dissatisfaction with this outcome, but Lloyd assures her that their party's funds are steadily increasing. He mentions that if they take on another significant mission, they could earn a similar amount again. However, Noel reminds him that such missions are rare. Unlike clans, they do not receive direct missions from the country. He explains that all Abyss purification tasks are handled by clans, and if they fail, they must pay a penalty. Noel then inquires about their party's total savings, and Lloyd reveals it stands at around $12.8 million. Noel proposes they use this money to establish a clan, explaining that they need to pay $20 million to the country to do so, promising to provide the remaining $7.2 million. He argues that forming a clan would be better than relying on second-hand jobs from other clans. Lloyd points out that in addition to the $20 million, they will also need a base of operations in the capital, which could be costly. Noel mentions he already has an affordable location in mind. Tanya objects, asserting that they are still newbies, and it's premature to pursue this. Noel questions when they will be ready, stating they will always be newbies unless they establish their own clan. He insists he possesses all the necessary knowledge to get started and only lacks the experience of running a clan. Lloyd cautions that they won't land significant jobs without the country's trust. However, Noel argues that the country will trust them because they are young and attractive. He explains that the nation desires more Seekers, as they are seen as idols and heroes. Seekers must be youthful and appealing, and other clans are composed of similar individuals. They would also receive sponsorship fees if they partnered with a company. Walter finds it hard to believe that their looks will earn them better treatment from the country, but Noel insists that they will. Tanya expresses concern that this amounts to selling themselves. Despite her objection, Walter agrees, stating he has grown tired of taking second-hand quests. He argues that this move will enhance their status and increase their earnings. Walter adds that this way, he can indulge in romantic pursuits, prompting Tanya to protest. Lloyd grows angry at Walter's comment and defends Tanya. Noel then points out that they are at an impasse with 2 votes on each side and asks Lloyd, as the leader, to make a decision. Lloyd wonders if Noel is serious, and upon confirming his sincerity, he learns that if he doesn't agree, Noel will quit the party and take his share of the savings. Noel reminds them that he formed this party to achieve his dream of becoming a Seeker greater than the legendary Overdeath. Hearing this, Lloyd agrees to establish a clan, although Tanya appears displeased. Lloyd reassures her that this was bound to happen eventually and suggests they continue this discussion the day after tomorrow, as they still have alcohol in their systems. They all agree and prepare to leave. Tanya attempts to say something to Noel before he goes, but holds back. The next day, Walter rushes to Noel's room, informing him that Lloyd and Tanya have betrayed them. Later, Noel finds out from a letter that Lloyd made bad investments, got into debt, and stole all the group's money to pay it off before fleeing the city. After reading this, Noel laughs uncontrollably, which makes Walter angry at his partner's carefree attitude. Noel explains that he couldn't help but laugh at the humiliating downfall of Lloyd, who was once great. He then asks Walter where he got the letter. Walter says he found it in Lloyd's lodgings after hearing about a good job at the tavern that morning. He went to notify Lloyd and Tanya before anyone else, but when he arrived, they were gone. The lodging owner gave him the letter, and according to the owner, Lloyd left around 8 p.m. the previous night. Knowing this, Noel concludes they fled right before Itri's gates closed. It's now 9:30, meaning they've been gone for 12 hours. Noel's plan is to check the gate records to see where they left. He thinks Lloyd and Tanya probably didn't rent horses to avoid leaving tracks, so they might be able to catch up. Walter, however, just wants to give Lloyd a satisfying beating. After Walter speaks, Noel gets serious and says this is a betrayal. If they find Lloyd and Tanya, it'll likely turn into a fight to the death since both are strong. It won't be easy, especially because of their past as friends. Even if they win, they won't recover the money, which is why Lloyd and Tanya fled, pretending it was a romantic escape. Noel vows to make them pay 100-fold for what they've done. The two head to the Orcs Club. When they arrive, Noel announces to all the Seekers that Lloyd and Tanya have fled the city with the group's money. He offers a reward of 2 million Phil for capturing them alive. Walter asks why Noel is doing this, and Noel explains it's easier to have many people searching for the fugitives. Soon, a member of the Lightning Bite group volunteers to go after them, asks for details, and sets off with his team. Other tavern goers join in as well. After several leave, a man approaches and says he knows where Lloyd and Tanya went, but wants payment for the information. Noel offers him 1 million Phil, but the man asks for 1.5 million. Noel sticks to his offer, realizing the man is a poor old seeker who can't find work anymore. The man gives in and tells them he saw Lloyd and Tanya on Varley's Road, heading through the South Gate. Their likely destination is Karnat Village. Noel asks the man to gather his group and meet him at the South Gate. Walter will go with the man, while Noel has something to take care of first. Later, Noel meets Walter and the others. Walter asks if Noel is sure he can face Lloyd and Tanya, and Noel confidently says he'd kill them both without mercy. He's always known what he'd do if friends betrayed him. One of the men from the other group asks if Noel never trusted his friends. Noel replies that trusting isn't the same as blind faith. He tells Walter to stay in the city, which makes Walter grumble about being called weak. Noel thinks to himself that Walter has a good heart, and if he's not fully committed, the upcoming fight will be painful for him. Later in the afternoon, Lloyd suggests to Tanya that they rest for the night and continue in the morning. Seeing her worry, he tells her to relax because once Noel realizes he can't get the money back, he won't care anymore. Just as Lloyd finishes speaking, Noel and his companions appear behind them, using a stun howl to subdue them. Walter nearly punches Lloyd, but holds back. Noel calmly asks Lloyd what he did with the bounty from the lesser vampire. Lloyd admits he used it to pay off another debt. Noel deduces that the investments mentioned in the letter were a lie, and that Lloyd spent all the money on gambling. Walter becomes even angrier, knowing Lloyd wasted the money they risked their lives for. At that moment, Lloyd shouted that Noel and Walter didn't understand what it meant to be a leader. He didn't want to spend the money, but realized he was already drowning in debt. He believed his former companions had no right to criticize him, since they left him to bear the burden of leadership. Now, they wanted the benefits when it was convenient for them. As Lloyd kept talking, Noel kicked him in the face and reminded him that it was Lloyd who wanted to be the leader. Even after losing all the group's money to gambling, Lloyd still wanted to play the victim. As he ranted, Noel kicked him several more times, and Lloyd began begging him to stop. Walter looked away, not wanting to see the scene, feeling uncomfortable. The rest of the group was in awe of Noel's determination to punish the former leader. While Tanya pleaded for the violence to stop, Noel asked Tanya if she wanted to take the kicks for Lloyd, and warned he wouldn't hold back just because she was a woman. Noel then used his confess ability, which forced Tanya to tell the truth. She admitted that she also gambled with Lloyd and spent the group's money. However, she blamed him, saying she could have made a fortune if he hadn't stopped her from gambling. After hearing this, Noel lifted his head. Tanya complained that using mind control spells for personal gain was illegal. But Noel explained it was allowed when the goal was to make a criminal confess, which had just happened. As a result, Tanya and Lloyd were either going to prison or facing 10 years of forced labor, which was the usual punishment for their kind of crime. Now that things were under control, an informant approached Noel, asking for his reward. And hey, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. When Noel hesitated, the old man grabbed his wrist and warned him not to cheat. Noel knocked the man to the ground, calling him a failed seeker with bad equipment. The old man drew his sword, but Noel struck him in the stomach, nearly killing him. This move reminded Noel of a technique his father had taught him. It causes a cardiac concussion that knocks out even the strongest fighter. Just then, a luxurious carriage arrived. Out stepped Finocchio Barzini, a well-known slaver. He worked for the Lucianos, the most powerful mafia family in the capital. Finocchio was both refined and cruel, earning him the nickname Mad Clown. Walter asked if this was Noel's plan all along. Noel confirmed that Lloyd and Tanya probably had no money, so he made a deal with Finocchio to sell them as slaves to recover the lost funds. Otherwise, they would be handed over to the military police, where only 2 criminals survive forced labor. Finocchio offered 6 million fil for the pair, but Noel said the price was too low. The slaver explained the Church of the Holy Cross was about to issue a decree of poverty, meaning the wealthy would have to cut back on luxuries. Spending too much would attract the church's attention. Noel asked if even the most powerful mafia couldn't defy the church, and Finocchio confirmed this. Noel stood firm, raising the price to 11 million. Surprised, Finocchio raised it to 12 million. After more bargaining, the price shot up to 15 million. Finocchio threatened Noel, but Noel replied that he would tell everyone that Finocchio paid 30 million instead of 15, making Lloyd and Tanya seem even more valuable. Finocchio could then sell them later for 90 million. Impressed by Noel's cleverness, Finocchio offered him a leadership position in his mafia family. Noel refused and asked for the final deal. Finocchio agreed to 15 million but warned Noel never to pull such a stunt again. He also ordered the old man to keep quiet or face the consequences. As Lloyd was taken away, Tanya begged for mercy, reminding Noel that they were once companions. Noel coldly replied that companions don't gamble with other people's money, and a traitor will always be a traitor. In despair, Tanya turned to Walter for help. But when that didn't work, she insulted him, calling him useless. Finocchio commented on how frightening women could be, and then bid Noel farewell. Noel paid the old seeker, who tried to insult him, saying Noel was only good for giving enhancements. Noel replied that the man's insults were pathetic and that he could learn a thing or two from Tanya. As Noel left, the man called him a devil. Noel reflected that seekers hunt beasts to survive, and being called a devil by a seeker was a sign of deep resentment. He decided to wear that title with pride, aiming to become the strongest seeker in the world. The next day, back in Itri, Noel gave Walter a bottle of liquor as a farewell gift. The night before, Walter had decided to quit being a seeker because of his emotional fragility. Though Noel tried to convince him to stay, Walter had already made up his mind. The bottle symbolized their goodbye. After Noel left, Walter wondered if Noel even had a heart, especially since Tanya had loved him, yet Noel never showed any interest. In the end, all Noel cared about was becoming stronger, which made him the group's only special member. With that, Walter took a sip from the bottle, calling Noel his best friend. Meanwhile, Noel thought about starting over. He compared himself to a snake shedding its skin to grow stronger. With that in mind, he planned to rebuild the blue beyond.
The scene begins with a girl noticing a recruitment notice posted by Noel, thinking she has finally found Noel. Later, in a tavern, Wolf is seen telling Noel that he will not get anyone worthwhile through his recruitment notice. Noel, annoyed, asks Wolf to stop bothering him. Wolf argues that all the peeled people are already in other clans or parties. Despite Wolf's insistence, Noel tells him to mind his own business. Wolf, trying to be friendly, suggests that Noel cannot fight alone and should consider joining his party. Wolf explains that his party is called the Lightning Bite and consists of skilled members, including an elven archer named Alicia. He suggests Noel will make more money if they join forces rather than forming a new party. This irritates Noel, and the other members of Wolf's party tell him to stop bothering Noel. Alicia teases Wolf, saying his constant talking is why he gets rejected by girls. Embarrassed, Wolf quiets down, and Noel mentions that he would be willing to join the party under one condition. Wolf, thinking it would not be a problem, is surprised when Noel asks to be made the leader. Wolf's party members agree, saying Noel is smarter, but Wolf refuses to give up his position as the founder and leader. At that moment, the girl from earlier sneaks up on them, startling everyone. Wolf is shocked that she managed to sneak up on Alicia, an excellent tracker. The girl introduces herself as Alma and says she is there because she saw Noel's recruitment poster. They sit down to talk, and Noel starts by asking her age, explaining that kids cannot become seekers. Alma confidently reveals she is 21 years old, which makes her 5 years older than Noel. Wolf's party members ask her a series of questions, which she answers without hesitation. Noel then asks about her class and rank, and she tells them she is a scout rank C. Noel thinks that a scout skilled in tracking would be useful in the abysses. Noel asks Alma why she wants to be a seeker, and she replies that she has no interest in becoming one. Instead, she is only interested in Noel because he is the grandson of Overdeath. Noel is surprised to hear this and asks how she knows about his grandfather. Alma reveals that her grandfather once fought Overdeath, resulting in her grandfather losing his right hand. Noel wonders if she is seeking revenge, but Alma explains that revenge is pointless. She simply wants to see what kind of seeker Overdeath's grandson has become. Noel tells her that his grandfather is dead and apologizes. Alma shares that her grandfather also passed away last month, so there is no need for an apology. Noel then asks for the name of her grandfather, and Alma reveals that he was Alcor Judiklai. Everyone in the tavern is shocked because Alcor was the founder of the Society of Assassins, a notorious organization that kills for money. A seeker named Logan becomes angry, thinking Alma is lying. Wolf tries to intervene, telling Logan that this is none of his business. But Logan refuses, citing an unspoken tavern rule that only seekers of a certain prestige are allowed inside. Alma admits she did not know this and realizes she is a novice. Logan warns her that regulars often punish those who break this rule. Alma then asks Noel what determines a seeker's prestige, and Noel explains that it ultimately comes down to strength, not just class and rank. Alma realized she only needs to defeat Logan and quickly takes him down with a chop and a kick, surprising everyone. Impressed by her skill, Noel hires Alma on the spot. As the excitement dies down, Alma's stomach growls and she mentions she is hungry. The scene then cuts to Alma eating croquettes with Noel, who comments that the food is nothing special. Alma, having grown up in the mountains, finds it plenty special. Noel realizes Alma is truly Alcor's granddaughter, and she asks if he had doubted her until now. Noel admits it was natural to be skeptical given her sudden appearance and bold claim. Alma replies that she believed he was Overdeath's grandson as soon as she saw him. She explains that his eyes tell her he is willing to do anything to win, which reminded her of her grandfather's warning about Overdeath. Her grandfather had told her never to fight Overdeath head-on, as he was unpredictable and unbeatable. Alma tells Noel that his eyes brought back those memories, and Noel asks if she had been training to be an assassin in the mountains. Alma confirms this and adds that while she has not reached the rank yet, she has already met the requirements to become an assassin. Noel begins by wondering why Alma didn't join the Assassin Society given her skills. Alma explains that she did attempt to join them, and as part of her test, she had to fight a weak assassin. She easily defeated him and was about to kill him, following the society's rule that the strong survive and the weak must die. However, the referee stopped her. Alma asked the referee who he really was, and he revealed himself to be Simon Gregory, the current leader of the Assassin Society. She learned that the society's rules had changed, and they no longer killed people on a whim. Simon told her she wasn't fit for the society and she was kicked out. Alma goes on to explain that the society no longer trains assassins in the old ways because they no longer need them. She also mentions that the Assassin Society, which has always been independent, is soon going to be brought under the control of the crown. Noel realizes this means the society will become affiliated with the government. Alma explains that their new leader has decided to shift the society's focus toward espionage rather than contract killings, believing it's the only way the society can survive. Noel recognizes this as very important information and worries that he might get killed for knowing it. Alma, however, assures him that she will protect him like a big sister, though Noel dislikes her pretending to be his elder sister. The next day, Noel and Alma are in a forest, and Noel asks Alma how much she knows about talkers. Alma responds that she only knows talkers are weak on their own, but have powerful support skills that benefit their party. Noelle confirms this, but explains that using buffs isn't easy. A single mistake can cost the entire party, so talkers must assess the entire battlefield before casting. Their real job is to control the battlefield by giving orders to maximize their teammates' potential. However, talkers cannot buff themselves, and they struggle to survive on their own. Alma believes Noelle can survive on his own, and Noelle admits he would be long dead if he couldn't. They stop by a river, and Noelle asks Alma to catch a monster for him. He explains that monsters are flora and fauna mutated by the abyss, and hunting them is part of a seeker's duty. He shows her a picture of a killer rabbit, which Alma thinks looks cute. Noelle warns her to be careful since these creatures are just as aggressive as they are cute. He then tells her they will conduct an experiment, where she will catch the monster while he buffs her. Alma insists she doesn't need his help, but Noelle explains that it takes time for a body to adjust to a talker's buffs. He asks if she has the Axel skill, and Alma says she does, mentioning that it doubles her speed but can also quadruple with stacking. Noelle points out that she didn't master the skill immediately but had to train her body to handle it. Similarly, Alma will need time to adjust to his buffs, and how well she adapts will influence their future strategy. Noelle tells Alma that his last party took half a month to get used to his buffs, and she understands. He then asks how many killer rabbits are in the area, and Alma estimates there are 13 within a 200-meter radius. Noelle buffs Alma using Battle Voice and Tactician, enhancing her abilities as long as she follows his orders. Alma feels a strange energy within her, and Noelle tells her to stack her Excel to the maximum, increasing her speed 6-fold. He challenges her to catch one killer rabbit in 10 seconds. Alma starts the test, running through the forest, and catches all 13 rabbits in 8.6 seconds, shocking Noelle. Impressed by her quick adaptation to his buffs, he decides there is no need for further training. He then reveals that they will take their first quest as a party, which involves helping a small town called Mince deal with some thieves. While they ride in a carriage to the town, Noelle explains the types of job seekers do, including fighting abyssal beasts, hunting criminals, and searching for treasure. However, since their current client is a farming village, they won't be paid much, but Noelle sees it as a good trial for their party. The scene shifts to a town called Eudora, where they stop for the night. Alma, exhausted from the carriage ride, complains about her sore backside. Noelle jokes that her excitement will fade after more long rides. They search for an inn but find most are full, until they secure a single room. Noelle offers to sleep on the floor while Alma takes the bed, but Alma doesn't mind sharing, treating him like a younger brother. Noelle blushes, which Alma finds cute, but he is irritated and goes to take a bath. Afterward, Alma stretches while Noelle, now half naked, exits the bath. Alma is surprised by his well-toned muscles and admires his physique, though she believes he'll never match frontline fighters. She tells him that hard work can't surpass natural talent and mentions that he could have become the ultimate seeker if he were a warrior, like his grandfather, over death. This comment angers Noelle, but he remains calm and flicks her forehead, telling her to mind her own business. He then tells her to take her bath while he prepares to sleep. As Alma heads to the bath, Noelle lies in bed, reflecting on his limitations. He recalls his grandfather's words, promising to make him the strongest seeker despite his class, and thinks back on his memories of Overdeath. The next day, the mayor happily welcomes the Blue Beyond group after a year without seeing them. He's surprised, though, to find only 2 members standing before him. Noelle explains that the other 3 have retired, leaving just him and Alma. Despite this, the mayor has nothing to worry about, as the pair will handle the thieves today, according to their new leader. Inside the house, the mayor's wife serves tea, and Noelle notices a young girl hiding. When she realizes she's been seen, she hesitates. The mayor introduces her as Chelsea, saying she's been going through a tough time but was excited to meet Blue Beyond. Noelle comments that she must be disappointed since Lloyd isn't here anymore. In truth, though, Chelsea admires Noelle more than Lloyd, though no one knows this. Next, Noelle reviews the mission. The mayor's letter mentioned 20 thieves had attacked a nearby village, causing casualties and kidnapping women. Noelle asks if they found the bandits' hideout, and the mayor confirms it's in a rocky clearing in the eastern forest. Regarding payment, Noelle requests 2 zinzanzin up front and 3 more upon completing the mission. To his surprise, the mayor quickly pays the initial sum, surprising Noelle, who thought the man would try to haggle. He notices that the money likely wasn't easy for the mayor to gather. Still, Noelle assures him the mission will be done, and awaits the rest of the payment. As they leave, Alma teases Noelle, saying the mayor's wife was staring at her. The mayor's daughter runs up to them and asks Noel if he'll really defeat the bandits. With a warm smile, Noel reassures her that he will end the nightmare soon. The girl, excited, shows him the bamboo dragonfly she's holding, saying Noel taught her how to make it last time he was there. She adds that the ones she makes now fly higher than any other kids, and she treasures the dragonfly he gave her. Embarrassed, she runs off, hoping for a safe return. Afterward, Alma comments that Noel has a charming face, but is a scoundrel for having the girl wrapped around his finger. Not in the mood for the teasing, Noel tells her to be quiet, and they continue on their way. By nightfall, they arrive at the bandits' hideout and realize there are far more than 20, likely double the number the mayor mentioned. Observing the group, Noel thinks he recognizes their leader. Soon he identifies him as Razor the Fat, a B-rank bandit with a bounty of 2 million fil, notorious for reconnaissance. Noel thinks to himself, in a one-on-one fight, this would be easy, but the problem will be if the others surround us. Noel assures Alma that he'll handle the rest. Alma, using her stealth ability, infiltrates the enemy camp. Through their linked thoughts, Noel receives updates as she moves through the camp. Soon, she reaches Razor's tent and waits for Noel's signal. Noel then unleashes his stun howl, paralyzing the bandits in the area, and orders Alma to take down Razor. She swiftly pierces through the tent, driving her dagger into the leader's torso. With the boss dead, her task is to keep the remaining enemies busy until Noel arrives. One by one, Alma cuts down the bandits, and Noel, watching her, notes that she seems to take a strange pleasure in it, something that could be a problem in the future. As Alma counts her kills, Noel joins the fight, using a flash grenade to blind their opponents. He follows up with flame bullets, setting a large fire that quickly engulfs the camp. Later, the mayor joyfully greets Blue Beyond, asking if the bandits have been killed. Noel confirms that they're all dead and offers to show the mayor the leader's body, but the mayor declines for now. Regardless, Noel requests the rest of his payment. The mayor invites them to dine first, saying his wife and daughter have prepared a feast. Inside, Chelsea expresses her dream of becoming a seeker like Noel and wonders if she's capable of it. Noel replies that any adult can, and she should consider enrolling in the training school in Trowel, a government-run institution with a 2-year course for frontliners and a 1-year course for those working behind the scenes. He warns her, though, that the government doesn't cover living expenses, so she'd have to manage that herself. He also suggests she could gain experience as a support, though it's not a common path. Supporters help seekers and get to observe them up close. Enthralled, Chelsea asks if she could join Blue Beyond once she's strong, and Noel assures her that if she becomes skilled and still looks up to him, they will fight together. The mayor and his wife then bring out a bottle of wine to celebrate, something the mayor had set aside for a special occasion. Noel, noting the wine's exceptional quality, insists the mayor take the first sip. The mayor's expression suddenly changes to suspicion, and Noel cuts to the chase, asking the man to drink the wine he poisoned. The mayor is stunned, demanding to know why Noel would accuse him of such a thing. Noel calmly explains that the mayor wouldn't need to pay Blue Beyond if its members died, and he could simply take their money and gear. The mayor, growing more anxious, demands to know why Noel is accusing him of such a plot. Noel gives 3 reasons. First, a man who lies about the number of bandits to lower the reward wouldn't open a bottle worth 1 Zenden filled just out of generosity. Second, the wine is cheap, and Noel can tell by the smell that it's starting to spoil, meaning it's been open for a while, unlike the story about saving it for this moment. Lastly, Noel senses the mayor's bloodlust as soon as he mentions the wine. Alma wonders how the mayor thought he could fool them with such a simple act, especially since the recon class builds up poison tolerance. The mayor loses his composure, insisting there's no proof against him. But Noel presses him to take the first sip of the wine if there's nothing wrong. Panicking, the mayor knocks over the glass and calls for help. At this point, Noel uses his confessed magic, forcing the truth from the mayor. He admits to poisoning the wine, planning to kill Blue Beyond and steal their valuables after they dealt with the bandits. Chelsea, horrified, asks if her father really intended to kill Noel and her. Before she gets an answer, Noel strikes the mayor in the right eye, making it clear that he won't stop there. The mayor begs for forgiveness and promises to pay the 3 Zenden he owes, but Noel demands all the mayor's money if he wants to live. The mayor pleads, saying he has debts to pay the Gambino family, a mafia that will kill him if the payment is delayed. Noel remains unfazed, continuing to threaten him. In desperation, Chelsea brings out 8 coins, 2 Zizens, the last of the family's money and hands them to Noelle. Her father calls her a fool, warning that the Gambinos will kill them all without that money. Chelsea, however, stands firm and gives the coins to Noelle. He accepts the payment and calls Alma to leave. As they go, Chelsea shouts in anger, declaring her hatred for Seekers, but Noelle ignores her. On their way back, Alma comments on how hard life is for Seekers. Noelle asks if she's referring to what just happened. She says no, but wonders if he's really okay with everything. Coldly, he assures her that he is. Alma then remarks that losing the admiration of someone who cared about him isn't good, no matter how he sees it. Noelle responds that if he feared disappointing people, he would have stayed on a deserted island. At that moment, they spot an airship in the sky, marked with the Goat Dinner Clan symbol. Noelle explains that this symbol represents the 3-star regalia, showing the clan is recognized by the Empire. There are 7 regalia clans ranked by their achievements, 4 3-star clans, 2 2-star clans, and 1 1-star clan. Owning an airship is a privilege of the regalia, and the ship likely carries some of the smartest and wealthiest people in society. Noelle then shares his ambition to reach that level of prestige within a year. Hearing this, Alma recalls a test from her past where Simon Gregory asked if she had killed Alker Judicolo, the former leader of the Assassin Society. Alma admits it was easy since Alker was already very old. Simon had told her that Alker sought power and was a reaper in human form, but he could never surpass the Overdeath, and that failure consumed him. Simon then asked if Alma was really Alker's daughter, to which she revealed she was born from a woman Alker had kidnapped from a village. Alker never wanted children, he wanted someone to be just like him. He believed that by creating an invincible version of himself through Alma, he could erase his defeat to the Overdeath. Because of this obsession, all of Alma's siblings died except her. Even though Alma succeeded in surviving, Simon told her she no longer had a place in the Assassin Society as it had become less violent. Alma was devastated, realizing she had spent 21 years training for something that no longer mattered. As consolation, Simon told her that the Overdeath's grandson had become an eloquent seeker in the capital, the weakest of all classes. His name was Noelle Stolen. Recalling that moment, Alma embraces Noelle and vows to always fight by his side. This brings an end to our episode. The story shifts to a public bathroom where a man drags an officer into one of the stalls, knocking him out. Taking the fallen officer's hat, he disguises himself as the unconscious man. As he exits, he runs into a rookie officer who comments that his stomach feels better. The disguised man replies in agreement before resuming his post guarding a cell that holds a prisoner on death row. This prisoner, Hugo Capelius, known as the Puppet Master, left Etre, the Empire's capital, trembling with fear. Meanwhile, Noelle is training by running 2 laps around the castle walls with a barrel filled with rocks, adding weight to the exercise. This route is part of his daily routine, and he must complete it within 2 hours. Years ago, his grandfather subjected him to intense training, insisting that the beast won't wait for you. This rigorous regimen began the day Noelle declared his intent to become a seeker. Since then, his once kind grandfather transformed into a demanding mentor, putting Noelle through grueling exercises to prepare him for the dangers he would face as a seeker. Unlike other seekers, eloquents like Noelle don't possess special powers to strengthen themselves, so they rely on relentless training to survive. Although the routine was brutal, Noelle continued day after day, finding solace in rare smiles exchanged with his grandfather. Years later, with a physique that reflects his intense training, Noelle recalls the words of Alma Judicoli, who once praised his physique but noted that hard work couldn't rival natural talent. Alma, a former member of the Assassin Society, not only praised Noelle, but also made unwanted advances, forcing him onto a bed and teasing him. She mocks him, claiming no younger brother can defeat an older sister, a reference to the sibling dynamic she insists on. When Noelle resists her, she jokes that he's adorable when he's desperate and even requests a kiss. Frustrated, Noelle resorts to a firm headbutt, causing Alma to complain that such force is unbecoming, suggesting instead that a flick would have been more gentlemanly. Trying to move past Alma's advances, Noelle suggests they head to the Assessor's Guild, explaining that it's the place where adventurers can evaluate their class and rise in rank. Inside, Noelle tells Alma that assessors are usually gnomes who dedicate their lives to studying classes, although they themselves don't rank up. He asks Alma if she has the mark needed to climb in rank, and she explains that she does, adding that a mark usually appears on the chest or back of the hand when it's time to rank up. Alma hopes Noelle's mark will appear on his back, feeling it's the ideal spot for such a symbol. Nearby, they overhear a gnome congratulating an adventurer who has just ranked up. Seeing this, Noelle wonders if Alma will become an assassin, but Alma hasn't decided and is open to suggestions. He expresses concern about finding a class that fits well with the new members of the Blue Beyond, their group. Alma asks if he truly plans to recruit more members, and Noel confirms, explaining they need at least one more person before venturing into the abyss. Next, Noel leads Alma to a dwarven blacksmith, where he regularly has his equipment maintained. Upon arrival, the dwarf notes Alma's striking features and welcomes her as a new member of the Blue Beyond. Afterward, they head to a bookstore specializing in skill books. Noel asks for a skill book suitable for Alma, who is a C-rank scout, setting her budget at 1 million fil. He tells her to spend it wisely on books and not waste the money. After some time, Alma returns with her purchases, which include the book Armor Piercing, a projectile skill that reduces the target's defense by half, priced at 800,000 fil. She also bought a large stuffed bear as a memento for 200,000 fil, making her total exactly 1 million fil. Although she could see Noel's frustration, she reassured him that it was the perfect purchase. Alma is curious about what Noel wanted to buy, but he admits it was out of his budget. He had his eye on exorcism, a skill for eloquence that can instantly vanquish undead foes. However, it costs 30 million fil, well beyond what he can afford. While they're in the store, Noel notices a mysterious figure passing by and decides to follow. The figure leads him to a dirty alley where he realizes it's Loki, who comments on the unpleasant surroundings but explains that he needed a private place to meet. Loki hands Noel information about a prisoner Noel is interested in recruiting for the Blue Beyond, despite the man's death sentence. Convinced that the prisoner was set up, Noel paid Loki to investigate the case to prove the man's innocence. Loki questions Noel's decision to recruit a convict, expressing concern about his unconventional methods. The protagonist takes Loki's comment as a compliment and shifts the topic, praising the investigator's work and mentioning how Loki's reputation as faithless is well-deserved. As an imitator who can copy others' appearances, Loki has the skill to infiltrate any place undetected. After paying Loki, Noel asks him to continue gathering information on the case. In return, Loki provides an extra piece of information. A harmful substance is spreading through the area, with a dangerous side effect of inducing uncontrollable rage. Its use has led to a rise in violent incidents and stabbings around the district. This substance is linked to the Luciano family, even though the region is under the control of the Gambino family, led by Albert Gambino. Meanwhile, Alma dines on her steak with a tense expression until an old friend unexpectedly arrives. Reflecting on the Gambino family, Noel realizes that the former boss had died, leaving his son to inherit the business. Observing the poverty around him in the outskirts, he laments that the old boss had been respected, even by figures like Fenechio Barzini, and would never have allowed such a dangerous substance to be sold. As Noel looks around, he notices a young man with an unusual appearance for the area and wonders if he might be an immigrant. Despite his youth, the beggar is far from home, likely with unfulfilled dreams and ambitions. Feeling compassion, Noel leaves a coin for him. The beggar calls out, thinking Noel dropped the coin, and warns that this place isn't safe for a pretty girl like Noel. Offended, Noel clarifies that he is a man, which surprises the beggar. When the beggar tries to give back the coin, Noel insists he wouldn't touch something handled by someone dirty and turns to leave. Suddenly, the beggar chases after him, only to be met with a swift kick from Noel. Noel harshly tells him he's worth less than that silver coin, causing the beggar to have flashbacks to another man who treated him similarly. Reliving his trauma, the beggar takes a defensive stance, prompting Noel to realize he's no beginner in combat. The beggar attacks, but Noel skillfully dodges and counters by slamming him against the wall. Impressed, a stranger watching nearby asks if Noel is a ninja. Noel explains that ninja is a subclass of reconnaissance from a distant eastern country, deducing the beggar's origin. Sensing great potential, Noel considers recruiting him for Blue Beyond. Noel mentions that he's of the eloquent class, but the beggar has lost interest in titles and prepares to fight. However, their skirmish is interrupted by a small man named Miguel, who addresses the beggar as Koga and reminds him to behave. Alma, meanwhile, tells her friend about her ranking options as a reconnaissant, assassin, torturer, pursuer, or bandit. The evaluation guild found her most suited to assassin or pursuer, but she is waiting to make a choice based on her team's needs, as Noel suggested. Miguel places a painful restraining spell on Koga using a ring, which Noel recognizes as a vow of subordination, an illegal item that forces the wearer to obey the ring's owner. Miguel questions Noel, assuming he's a pretty girl, and in response, Noel kicks him away and points a gun at him, demanding answers. With no escape, Miguel reveals his story. He had fled from Solland after running an illegal fighting ring for the D'Lembert family and stealing money from them. Seeking refuge in the imperial capital, he plans to establish a new underground combat market, training Koga, a gladiator purchased and trained in Solland, to fight for him. Amid this tense situation, Alma assures her friend that she's capable of standing alongside Noel and will protect him if necessary. If anyone else tries to join Blue Beyond, she believes they won't last long. Considering the circumstances, Noel briefly contemplates killing Miguel to free Koga. Suddenly, the sound of a gunshot breaks through the air. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. Noel fired just above Miguel's head, warning him to disappear and starting a 10-second countdown. Panicked, Miguel fled, kicking Koga to wake him up and get moving too. Meanwhile, Noel thought the boy was foolish not to kill his oppressor and seize his freedom, considering the strength he had. In truth, Noel didn't want a weak, nearly dead stray, he wanted a fierce wolf, which was why he let the swordsman escape. Afterward, Noel returned to Alma and asked why Lisha was there. Instead of answering, she thanked him for the meal as though he were paying. After they ate, he clarified that he wasn't covering the bill. The elf frowned, saying he didn't need to be so stingy, especially since he had left their meeting without apologizing. Alma was also upset, pointing out that if Lisha hadn't shown up, she would have had to eat alone. Reluctantly, Noel agreed to pay the bill, but only for today. Changing the topic, the elf asked if the leader of Blue Beyond had found a new recruit. As his delay suggested, he was scouting. Though Koga's image crossed Noel's mind, he replied that he hadn't found anyone worthwhile. Instead, he'd been gathering information on a dangerous new substance spreading in the area. It provided a high but left users out of control. Since the distributor was unknown, Noel advised Lisha to be cautious and tell Wolf to do the same. The elf found it odd that Noel was concerned for her clan, but he insisted he was just sharing information with a colleague. Lisha pretended to understand and said her goodbyes, as it was almost time for her shift. Before leaving, she invited Alma to a cafe with the best sweets around, saying they'd go as friends, not colleagues. Touched, Alma agreed, declaring them best friends now. Excited, Lisha tried to include Noel, but he bluntly told her to scram. With the elf gone, Noel reflected that if Lisha knew about the substance, it might already be circulating outside Gambir's territory, and he could only hope it wouldn't cause trouble. Speaking of Gambir's notorious mafia, Miguel was next shown facing Albert Gambino. Gambino mocked him for thinking he could escape with his family's money, pointing out that the D'Lemberts had posted a wanted poster and asked Papa Luciano to turn Miguel in. Miguel realized he was in serious danger, facing the cruelest man around. Despite the orders, Gambino admitted it wouldn't be fun to hand him over, as it would be doing a favor for a low-level gang like the D'Lemberts. Sensing an opportunity, Miguel flattered Gambino, emphasizing his status in the prestigious Luciano family. Playing along, Gambino responded that even he understood the value of respect, and since the D'Lemberts didn't know how to use him, Miguel eagerly offered to work for Gambino instead. However, Gambino announced he would deal with him by skinning him alive, turning his insides into ham and sausage, and selling it back to the D'Lemberts. Gambino instructed his assistant, Leos, to prepare. Meanwhile, Koga thought grimly that he would die like an animal despite all he had endured, but at least it would be over. Next, a man with overdue debt, the mayor of Minsk, entered Gambino's office, saying he had the money until a seeker named Noel Stalin had robbed him, even taking his wife and daughter hostage and gouging out his eye. Noel had taunted him, saying it was better to throw the money away than give it to Gambino's weak family. Hearing this, Gambino promised justice against Stalin. However, because the mayor had delayed payment, Gambino demanded his right arm as penalty. He ordered Koga, a swordsman skilled with a longsword, to cut off the mayor's arm with a wooden cane. Skeptical, the mayor doubted it was possible, but with a swift, almost invisible motion, Koga obeyed, splattering blood everywhere and thrilling Gambino. Miguel seized the chance to boast about Koga, describing him as an undefeated champion from the Far East who had been raised with love but was now available to the mafia boss. Gambino accepted the offer immediately. After this brutal display, Koga reflected on his life. Born to a wealthy merchant father and a beautiful mother, he was meant to be an heir to the Tsukushima name, but bandits attacked his parents before his birth, and his mother's mind deteriorated afterward. When she gave birth, his father doubted Koga was his child. Over time, his mother took her own life, and no matter how hard he tried, his father only responded with scorn and violence, making Koga feel cursed and unwanted. One day, Koga woke up on a boat, realizing he had been sold into slavery. It was then that he met Miguel, who became his master. Forced into underground fights, Koga's desperation for acceptance led him to tear up when Miguel praised him for his victories. In the twisted world of underground fighting, this was the first compliment he'd ever received. Back in the present, after Koga donned his armor, Leos asked if he was ready. That night, Loki called Noel aside to inform him that the Gambino family was after him, based on the mayor of Mince's lies. Noel mentioned that the previous Gambino boss had been decent and wanted to know how someone as unhinged as Albert took over. Albert Gambino, the only son, was known for his cold-hearted nature. Suddenly, Noel sensed someone approaching, armed, and immediately guessed it was an enemy. Benny asked if Loki had betrayed him, and the faithless one confessed that he had. Noel pointed out that setting a trap for a client was unprofessional, but Loki, having been paid handsomely, claimed he valued his life enough to start anew in another country. Noel, drawing his pistol, remarked that Loki overlooked one crucial detail: Noel had no reason to let him live. Regretfully, he admitted he liked Loki. Loki replied that he felt the same, accepting his fate with open arms. Noel questioned Loki's apparent lack of self-preservation. Loki confessed he realized too late that he had sold out not only Noel, but also his own pride. Seeing this, Noel spared him, warning him not to leave the capital, as he intended to bring down the Gambino family. Loki laughed and cried, calling Noel a true character before leaving. Alone, Noel took a combat potion that granted 10 minutes of strength but came with brutal side effects. He then arrived at the location where Koga, now in heavy armor, awaited him. Koga was surprised to face Noel, whom he had only met earlier that day. Noel noted how quickly Koga had risen in rank, getting a better master. Noel warned that their duel wouldn't be interrupted this time. But Koga didn't draw his sword, admitting he was reluctant to fight Noel and felt he owed him for the silver coin. Noel was suspicious, wondering if Koga was bluffing. But Koga clarified that he was bound by his master's orders, even though he still had his pride as a longsword swordsman specializing in slicing techniques. In response, Noel introduced himself as someone who could channel abilities by consuming mana and had inherited the powerful techniques of the great Overdiev. Without hesitation, Noel fired at Koga, who dodged and charged swiftly. Noel narrowly avoided his attack, then pulled a rope attached to the ceiling and launched a flame bolt, intending to overwhelm Koga with fire. But Koga expertly sliced through the air, creating a vacuum that kept the flames at bay. They engaged in intense combat, with Noel attempting a low blow that Koga narrowly avoided. Koga complained, but Noel reminded him that in a fight to the death, anything goes. Using a flash bomb, Noel temporarily blinded Koga, who countered with his secret blade technique, Tsubomgeshi. Frozen cuts appeared in the air, ready to strike at his command. The duel continued fiercely, but ultimately Koga emerged victorious, standing over Noel. Despite his victory, Koga showed respect, admitting Noel was the best opponent he'd ever faced. Noel questioned why Koga didn't finish him, as Gambino had surely ordered his death. Koga hesitated, but Noel urged him not to throw his life away for a master who would abandon him. At that moment, a woman named Alma appeared, declaring herself the only one who could truly defeat Noel. She'd come summoned through a link Noel had set up before taking the potion. As she attacked, Koga hesitated, not wanting to fight a woman. Amused, Alma assured him that she was stronger than him. Despite his reservations, Koga countered her attacks, demonstrating his skills. Noel observed their fight, recognizing that there would always be someone stronger. With renewed resolve, he vowed to become the strongest and never hesitate again. As the battle continued, Alma poisoned her blades while Koga summoned his ultimate technique, Eye Gleam. But before they could finish, Noel fired a flare, signaling them to retreat, as the military police were on their way. Koga acknowledged that he had no choice but to flee. Later, Koga returned to Gambino, who presented him with Miguel, his former master. Gambino warned Koga that this time no one would protect him if he failed. Before leaving, Koga delivered Noel's message to Gambino. Noel vowed to destroy the Gambino family if they didn't confront him directly. Enraged, Gambino ordered his men to hunt Noel down. As they left, Laos, Gambino's assistant, suggested that Koga might be drawn to Noel's strength, implying that he admired him deeply. Koga hurriedly denied it, but Laos remarked that one day he'd understand what it meant to be captivated by another's strength. Later, Gambino, accompanied by his men, found Noel in a tavern, ready to confront the eloquent fighter directly. Albert brazenly grabs Noel's wine, takes a drink, and mocks it as rotten. He assumes Noel must be struggling financially if he's drinking such low-quality stuff. Unfazed, Noel warns that drinking uninvited tarnishes the Gambino family's reputation and that not even the former boss could handle him, a wild dog. This enrages Albert, who orders Noel to never say such things again. But Noel calmly tells him to get his ugly face out of the way before he spoils his meal. If they want to discuss disrespect, Albert threatens he could cut out Noel's tongue so he never tastes anything again. Noel laughs, calling Albert all bark and no bite, especially around his friends. Albert's patience snaps as he threatens the tavern's owner. But Loven steps in, warning Albert that trouble won't be tolerated here, as the Seeker's Tavern has its own reputation to uphold. Furious, Albert orders his men to kill everyone, but Loven reminds him that starting a brawl here would have serious consequences. The Gambino family is already on thin ice with the authorities, thanks to their activities on the streets. Hearing this, Albert hesitates, and Noel mocks him as a coward who could never take on the crown, or Don Luciano. Noel goes on, saying that even if Albert wasn't so obnoxious, he wouldn't be enjoying the wine it was poisoned. Noel explains he had poisoned it when Albert walked in, which is why it tasted so terrible. Panicked, Albert bolts from the tavern, desperate to find a doctor, as Noel assures him he'll die anyway. With Albert gone, Leos praises Noel's sharp tongue and casually takes a sip of his own wine, calling the poison story a bluff. He tells Noel to leave Etri at once if he values his life, leaving money on the table as a warning. Noel coolly accepts, saying he'll leave the capital immediately. As he exits, he tells Logan his career as a seeker is over. Outside, Alma celebrates the plan's success, but Noel cautions it's too soon to celebrate. They plan to return in a week, as Noel has unfinished business, while Alma will train in the mountains, determined to defeat the swordsman in their next encounter. They part with a promise: Noel will bring down the entire Gambino family. A week later, Albert returns with his gang, furious to find Noel back in Etri. But when he orders his men to kill Noel, they ignore him. Confused, Albert demands answers from Leos as Noel laughs, explaining that Albert lost his right to lead. The Gambino family, it turns out, has grown weary of Albert's cruelty. They used to follow the Gambino name with pride, but Albert's madness has pushed them to the edge. In a twist, Noel reveals Albert's birth certificate, obtained by Loki, proving Albert's mother was married to another man, making his claim to the Gambino name false. Even the former boss only accepted him out of past love for Albert's mother. Noel then adds that a doctor exposed Albert's scheme to poison the former boss, revealing the cause of death as murder, not illness. Leos denounces Albert as morally bankrupt, unworthy of the Gambino legacy. Albert, desperate to hold on to power, insists he was the old man's chosen successor. But Leos, fed up, proposes a duel. If Albert can beat Noel, he'll be recognized as the head of the family. Albert can even choose someone else to fight for him if he's too afraid. Yet, Albert refuses, still claiming his position. At this, Finacchio Barzini, a respected family member, steps forward, declaring Albert's actions shameful and that he's come to witness the duel.